This was back in the late 90s when myself and two of my friends were staying at their vacation home down on one of the local rivers. The house is on a privately owned island which is used for cattle grazing. It's about 3 to 4 square miles in area. It's accessible by only one dirt road, which takes about 30 minutes to travel down. It bends and winds through dense cypress swamps and marsh plains. Along the road, there's another house, just as you get onto the island. It's long been abandoned. This old 2-story plantation-style home was supposedly abandoned when the owner's child suffered a fatal accident and they couldn't stand being there anymore. Aside from my friend's house, the cattle farmer's house, and one other vacation home, the abandoned property is the only other structure. My friends and I were out on the dock doing some night fishing, trying to land a shark or something to throw on the grill, but we hadn't had much luck. The river was as smooth as glass, which was really unusual. Because of where the dock is, the current there is usually strong, even during the tide shift. We sat and chatted, waiting for a bite, up until about 11 p.m. Off to our right, we heard a loud tone, or wail, which sounded like a mix between a ship's horn and maybe a wolf howl. We were startled. My friend, who had been spending his summers there since he was in diapers, had never heard the noise before. We decided to pack it in, since we weren't catching anything anyway, and had nearly gotten all our equipment back to the house when my second friend heard it. Coming from down the road back towards the island access was what sounded either like a cat meowing or a child crying. We all stood in silence listening, trying to figure out what it was, where it was coming from. After listening for about 5 minutes, we decided to hop in the truck and drive down the road a ways, with the windows down, so we could try and find out what was making the sound. What started out sounding like a cat was made clear as we got further up the road. We could clearly hear a child, and it sounded like it was saying, "Help me." We drove very slowly, calling out. We waited a few minutes, and then we heard, "Help me," again, but always further up the road, towards the swamps and the old abandoned house. We were seriously freaked out, because if there was a kid out there, why would they be going away from our calls and into the swamp? We almost made it all the way to the abandoned house when the sound just stopped. We waited for nearly an hour, but we never heard it again. We marked it up as nerves and headed back to the river house, assuming it had been an animal after all. We got back to the river house, got back inside, and settled in for the night. We started hearing it again. But as time passed, it came closer to us. We went out and called out again, and the sound would come closer. This went on for hours. We decided we would try one more time to see if there was a kid lost. But once we went outside in the truck again, the noise stopped. It was nearly 3 in the morning. We had been out in the sun fishing and swimming all day, so we were all tired. After driving around a bit and calling out again with no luck, we decided to give up. We went back inside again and got in our beds. There we heard it, clear as a bell. "Help me," right outside the house, but this time it sounded strange, like it was an echo. We went out to the porch, which was screened in, and listened. As soon as we went out, the noise stopped. We got back in the beds, it would call out again, but in a different location outside the house. It circled the house, calling all night. We all slept in the living room, but to be honest, there wasn't a lot of sleeping happening. In the morning, we went out and looked for tracks around the house. There wasn't a mark, no prints, animal or otherwise. To the best of my knowledge, this never happened again to my friend or any other visitors. To this day, we don't know what we heard, but it's probably the most supernatural occurrence I've ever experienced.